Hey everybody, how's it going? In this Python video, we're going to be looking at what is the difference between str and repr. Now, this is a question that I see that gets asked a lot, but if you go and try to test this out on your own or try to figure it out by yourself, sometimes the answer isn't extremely obvious. So for example, I have a little test file here. So if I save and run this, you can see that I have a variable A that's equal to a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, and variable B that is a sample string. And if I print out str and repr of A, down here, they are both exactly the same thing of a list. And if I print out str of B and repr of B, which is a string, you can see that they're very similar. This one doesn't have quotes around it, and this one does have quotes around it. So just from these simple tests, it's not extremely obvious as to what the difference between these are. So first of all, let's go ahead and take a look at the Python documentation for these. Now I have this blown up really large so that you guys can read it. So within the Python documentation, this is for str. It says that it returns a string containing a nicely printable representation of an object. For strings, this returns the string itself. The difference with repr is that str does not always attempt to return a string that is acceptable to eval, and its goal is to return a printable string. So let's take a look at what repr is. Okay, so it says that it returns a string containing a printable representation of an object. This is the same value yielded by conversions, reverse quotes. It is sometimes useful to be able to access this operation as an ordinary function. For many types, this function makes an attempt to return a string that would yield an object with the same value when passed to eval. So I think that's enough for that. So even reading through the documentation, it doesn't make it extremely clear as to what the difference between these are, especially if you don't know what this eval is. Now, if you dig deeper and you start looking at sites like Stack Overflow and things like that to answer this question, then you'll see kind of the consensus to this answer is that the goal of repr is to be unambiguous, and the goal of str is to be readable. So what does that mean exactly? Well, let me show you an example of when something needs to be unambiguous and when something needs to be readable. So I have a terminal pulled up here, and I already have a Python interpreter started, and I've already made a couple of variables here. So I have variable A and I have variable B, and without knowing what they are, let me print out these variables as strings. So if I do str A, then you can see that it looks like a date, 2015, and then it's got this little tag on the end, +0, looks like a time or a time zone or something like that. So let me do strb, and so it's the exact same thing. So on the surface, A and B are the same if you just look at the str, or what's returned by str. Now if we look back here at what we have written out here, the goal of str is to be readable, and it is very readable. It looks like a date. You can tell that this is probably the year, the month, the day, and then hour, minute, second, things like that. Now, the goal of repr is to be unambiguous. So let's run these same values through repr. So if I run repr-a, you can see, okay, this is a date time, and then has the year, the month, and then you can see the time zone info here is UTC. And if I do the same thing to B, then it's just a string. So that's what it means to be unambiguous. Whenever we ran repr on A, and we can see that it's a date time. And what it meant in the Python documentation about being able to pass something to eval pretty much just means that now not all of them return values like this, but pretty much it means that you should be able to put this in to Python and run it as a command. So datetime.datetime, I should be able to copy this and paste it down here in the interpreter and run it. Now in that case I got an error because the tz info actually needs to be pytz.utc or something like that. But really you can see that this line here, hold on, let me go ahead and clear the screen and rerun these again. So you can see that this line here, it looks more like a Python command than this one up here. This one's meant to be readable, and this one is meant to be unambiguous. So to kind of drive this point home, let me bring up the file that does the same thing as what I just had there in the interpreter. And just ignore these print statements here. I'm just doing a cheap way of adding in new lines. But you can see here that I have A is equal to datetime.datetime, UTC now, things like that. And then B, I just set equal to the string representation of A. Now, whenever I print out the str values of these variables, you can see that they look the same, just like they did in the terminal window I had pulled up. And the repr values here, you can see that one is datetime.datetime and the other one is just the string representation of that variable. So really a good way to think of this is that the representation, the repr, is really used for, is really meant for developers. Like if I'm debugging something and something's not working the way that it's supposed to, you know, this might be a good example. Maybe you get a value back from a database that's a date time and you forget to convert it to a date time and it's just a string. Well, if you just print out the string, you're not going to be able to tell that that's a string. It's just going to look like these values down here. It's going to be the str value is just going to look like this. They're going to be the same. But if you print out the repr value of it, then you can obviously see that it's either a string or that it's a date time. So that's meant for developers. And if you're going to if you want something to be user-friendly for somebody who's a non-developer, then you want to use str, because someone who's less familiar with programming, they don't want to see this datetime.datetime, tzinfo, stuff like that. It's going to be confusing to them. This is a more user-friendly version of that. So I hope that made sense to you guys. I hope that it kind of cleared up when you would use one over the other. But if you guys do have any questions, you know, just ask in the comment section below. And be sure to subscribe for future tips and tutorials. And thank you guys for watching.